Welcome to the Life Giving Leader Podcast. What is going on, all of you life-giving leaders out there? My name's Tyler Reagin. I'm the host of this podcast, the Life Giving Leader Podcast, and I am excited to have you with me today. This is episode 3 here in season 2. We've been interviewing people who are leading things they didn't start. Today's episode is awesome. It was such a great conversation with my friend Chris Durso. If you don't know Chris Durso, Pastor Chris Durso, he is the pastor of Saints Church in Queens, Brooklyn area. His parents started the church about 35 years ago, and he has now stepped in to lead that church. It's a fascinating story and conversation about how God stepped into his life, spoke into it, even though he might not have been the most logical choice in his mind or in age with his brothers and sisters, but how God has used that as an opportunity to step in. So that's coming up in this episode. And, if you caught the bonus episode last week that we got to put out with Roma Downey, I'd say that episode was touched by an angel. Okay, that joke's been used a million times. I couldn't help it. She was an angel and touched by an angel, but more than that, her and her husband, Mark Burnett, who's the executive producer of Survivor and The Voice, I mean, you name it, he's been a part of it. Amazing Christian family. They love the Lord. They love the kingdom, and they keep working really hard to create great art. And so they released a film, Resurrection, on Discovery Plus. And so that was last week. Make sure you check out that bonus episode because it's really fun to get to sit down with Roma and just know what they try to do in the way that they like to serve the Lord and their skill set and their space and with their talent and influence. So really cool. A couple updates. The old handicap has gone up to about 4.3, but I'm working really hard to get that back down. And by the time this podcast airs, I will have the opportunity to play Bay Hill down in Orlando. I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm working on my chipping, guys. For a guy that's a pretty good golfer, my chipping is less than average. That's just me being honest and me being real, and so there's that. One other thing I was going to talk to you about as we're getting ready for this episode, one of the questions I continue to ask these leaders who are leading things they didn't start is just what was a fear that you've had? And if I'm going to be real with you guys on this podcast, like I try to be, I've really just walked through a season as we released the book and as I've been doing a lot of new things. Man, the insecurity that comes up in your heart and in your spirit as a leader and the stories you start telling yourself. And in a few weeks, I'm going to introduce you to Paul Doherty, who is the pastor at Victory, who took over also for his parents. And he's got a great illustration of when he was stepping in, something his dad did for him that really helped anchor him to understand that God is with him. And so as I've walked through these last few weeks, I've recognized I've been short with my friends and family sometimes because I've just been anxious. And I don't even know really how to describe it other than I just wake up kind of insecure or feeling like, this is coming or that's coming. And at the end of the day, I have to know that God is with me, that he's called me. There's a divine design and direction in my life. And every time you get a bad review, you just got to move on and know that you're doing what God's called you to do. And so, anyway, I just want to be honest. I just want you to know, those of us who are leading at different spots, different levels, we all still fight through these things. And it's worth fighting through it because the impact we get to make on people. So maybe you're there. Maybe that's who you are today. If there's something I can pray for you, just DM me. And I'll pray for you. And just know, I don't know that it ever goes away. The key is, what are our thoughts that combat it? What are the ways that we can go and say, Lord, I know you believe differently. I know that you have truth in me. What is the truth that fights against these lies? And so just find that truth, in Scripture and find that truth in the way that works. Hey, another really cool insight or update. I just got an email today that Leading Things You Didn't Start is going to be printed in Portuguese. So all you who live in Brazil or Portugal or anywhere that Portuguese is spoken, be on the lookout for Life Giving Leader in Portuguese. If I knew how to say that in Portuguese, I would have done it already. So Without further ado, I want to get into this conversation with Chris Durso, leading a church that he didn't start, Saints Church in New York. One of the best leaders I know, one of the best preachers I know, that is for darn sure. And he's just a great, great human being. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Pastor Chris Durso. Welcome back to the Life Giving Leader podcast. My name's Tyler Reagin, and today I have the privilege of sitting with a friend who is one of my favorite leaders that I know, probably one of the best preachers I know, Chris Durso, pastor at Christ Tabernacle, now Saints New York. So tell us a little bit, Chris. Well, first of all, thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you, and thank you for saying all those kind things. About me coming in. I'm not sure if it's true, but I appreciate it. And I'm happy to be on with you.
Well, you are. Well, let me say this, Chris, before we even get going into kind of you telling people a little bit about yourself. I just want to say this publicly. One of the reasons I've loved you as a leader, and in the world where I was with Catalyst and everything, I got to come across a ton of different leaders and interact with a ton of great pastors and leaders.
Yeah.
I never felt with you like. Let me say this way. Every time I saw you, I felt like you were excited to see me, and you were a friend who we hadn't been in the same room together in a while. And there was just never this looking around to see who else is there. And I just want to say thank you for that, because it was just, you're about as down to earth a leader as I know.
Man, well, I don't know how else to respond but saying thank you. And I appreciate you inviting me into your world, into your space, into your sphere of influence. The way that I look at it is I'm just a PK from Queens, New York, and grew up in the church world and fell in love with the church. So anyone that I get to meet that loves the church, it's an honor. So
yes. So tell us a little bit, for those that might not know Chris, you and your background, give us a little bit of history on what you just said, being a PK, growing up in the church, which church, and then kind of where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents have been my pastors my entire life. 36 years ago, they started a church called Christ Tabernacle. And it was the first church out of the Brooklyn Tabernacle. So when Pastor Jim Cymbala sent out my father 36 years ago, my dad and mom planted a church in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and then outgrew that space and moved just a few neighborhoods over. So we're still pretty much in that same area, but now I'm in Queens, because Queens and Brooklyn border one another. And I grew up in a non-denominational, low-key Pentecostal church, except in my world, we didn't know anything else but our church. I didn't know other churches existed. I didn't feel like I was in the church world. And it wasn't until I got saved, which I got saved through Louis Giglio, through his young adult ministry, because I was going to Lee University. My parents shipped me to Lee University.
That's a change, huh? Go to Tennessee.
Didn't even know what the Church of God was. So now I'm there, and then some of my dorm mates were like, hey, we go to this young adult service in Atlanta. You want to come? And I go, and I give my life to Jesus, and then I just literally fall in love with the church, because I felt the presence of God, but it looked completely different from the context I came from. And what happened was, since I was in Lee, and you go to church on Sundays, and Cleveland, Tennessee is full of churches, every Sunday I would just go church hopping. I didn't have a church. 722 felt like my church. So on Sundays, I was just going around to different churches to see how they did it and experience it. And then a good friend of mine, Mario, was like, hey, why don't you come with me? I serve as a junior high leader at this church in the area. So I started attending with him as he was a leader in this junior high ministry. And I got so excited to come back to New York and jump into youth ministry, just because of what my experience looked like there. And I did grow up in a church with a great youth ministry. My older brother oversaw our youth ministry. It was called Youth Explosion at the time, which, before you laugh at the name, it was the 90s, okay? So, and then I came back and I helped him, and then he handed the ministry over to my wife and I changed the name to Misfit NYC, and we did that for over a decade. So that's pretty much my life story.
Yeah. Hey, so when you went off to Lee, was there a plan for you to come back? Was that the goal, or was that just go get a good school, get a good degree?
It was more of escape because I was hanging out with the wrong people for sure here. It was one of those, you're hanging out with the wrong people, you're about to get involved in a lot of things that you shouldn't be involved in. I respond to an altar call. And then as a response to that altar call, my parents are like, let's get you out of here and get you to Cleveland, Tennessee, Lee University. They had a relationship. They had a relationship with President Khan. And as a result, I was there.
Yeah. What a different cultural experience for you than where you grew up, huh?
Oh, completely.
Is that where you and Rich met each other?
Oh yeah, we were in the same dorm.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly where we became friends.
All right. So then you come back, you lead Misfits for a while. That's where we first got to know each other. And, one of the things I've loved is just some of your friendships with guys doing young adult ministry that are now leading churches with Chad and Judah and Rich, and the way you guys have kind of been each other's backbone, support, serving each other. And then all of a sudden you've got a new potential role, coming up on the horizon. Can talk about a little bit about where did those conversations come for you to potentially take over Christ Tabernacle at the time?
Yeah, I mean, pretty interesting because I'm the youngest of three. I have two amazing older brothers who are both in ministry. So if I'm being honest, I wasn't considering me for that role. And I'm not really sure anybody was.
Yeah.
And like self-deprecating, it just didn't make sense. But when I knew I was done with youth ministry, I definitely received different words from different pastors. Three pastors gave me the same word, and you know what I mean when I say word, a prophetic word. I got the same word 3 times from 3 different pastors: Tim Ross, John Cameron, Sergio Delamore. Over the course of a year and a half, they said, "Hey, tell your dad you're going to leave, and then he's going to give you the church," which all 3 of them never spoke to one another, but all gave me the same word at 3 different points. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be, I guess, but I didn't really listen until it just felt like it became uncomfortable for me to be in New York. And I basically, in a conversation with my parents, said, "Hey, me and my wife and my children, we're going to move to Nashville, and we're going to go on staff at the Belonging Co. with Henry and Alex.
Yep.
And we're going to serve there. I'll be a teaching pastor, and then I'll travel full time." Now, mind you, I never wanted to travel full time. And that wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it seemed like it made the most sense with trying to figure out what was next in New York or what was next in ministry. And then while I was out there, staying in their guest bedroom, looking at homes with my whole family, I got a call from my dad, and he says, "Hey, I was praying, and both your mom and I feel that you're supposed to take this church. Would you come home?" So that's exactly what I did. We said, okay. And we came home, and I was my dad's executive pastor for 4 years. He had it in his mind that he would hand me the church at 2020. So it was 4 years of operating as an executive pastor, and just playing that part and helping the church to transition to where we needed it to be. My dad is pretty amazing. He said to us, "I want to help you get it to where it's supposed to be."
Yeah.
Basically saying is, "I don't want you to inherit something that you don't want. Let me help you get it there. Let me operate in a position as a leader to help you get the church." And he was incredible. Before all that, it was definitely different conversations trying to understand how this would exist. I'm his youngest son. Not only my son, I'm his youngest son.
Right.
So navigating through all that, I'll say this: honest conversation is a game changer. And I think if leaders learn how to communicate honestly, and honestly can sometimes sound messy, but as long as you get your feelings out and as long as you get the truth out on both sides and you're committed to the end result, well, that's where the magic happens. That's where the beauty is. I just think too often people are scared to say what they really feel and what they're really thinking, or what's really running through their mind.
Well, and Chris, for you, that's even more tricky because your dad was the guy you were taking it from. Like there's a family dynamic there. How would you, one of the things I talk about in Leading Things You Didn't Start was the whole first section is about evaluation. So you actually had a season, 4 years to start going, okay, this is good. This needs adjustment. This needs fixing. I like this. What are those core things we love? When did even just the simple conversation of a name change for the church come up, and how did you address that in a way that was, honoring but also progressive?
So, in regards to the name change, I knew from the beginning that I was going to change the name. I just didn't know what the name was going to be.
Yeah.
And probably a year
Were you
in,
nervous about that at all?
no,
Yeah.
not nervous. Well, more cautious, because it's like when you have a 36 or 36-year-old church, or at the time 30-year-old church, or it's, you do things a certain way, certain things
Right.
a certain way, and it is what it is. But I just knew that it would need to happen in order for us to move forward as a church, for my wife and I to take the position that we're being given, because the expectation is not to carry on the legacy. The expectation is to continue building the church, and the result of building that is legacy. And I think that's where a lot of guys get it mixed up. It's not the family business. I took this position because God told me to.
Right.
Never planning it that way. When guys reach out to me and they're like, I want to take my dad's church, I'm like, bro, unless you have a word from God, run. Because I don't.
Right. It's complicated, man.
Super complicated. And just like there's complications in planting a church from scratch, there's complications in transitioning a church. And so regardless, you're going to deal with problems, but that's why we're leaders, right? We use our skill set, our creativity to answer for problems. So in regards to the name change, originally, you're going to laugh at this, I thought it was going to be, we were going to change the name to Home.
Oh, yeah.
Wanted to change the name to Home, and then Judah, church name to Church Home. And I was like, well, darn it, we can't do that now because we're too closely affiliated, and
Right.
that's confusing. But it was funny because we were already using this language of every saint as a past, every sinner has a future. And the idea of changing our name to Saints crossed my mind a few times. I just thought, I don't know if that's a good name for a church.
Yeah.
It's also kind of cool. Like, it might be too cool for a church. People were telling me for a long time, change the name to Misfit. And I was like, I'm not going to name the church Misfit.
Right.
I love that name. But here's what happened. A woman by the name of Pavla Cunnington, I'm sure you know who she is, phenomenal leader. She was at our church, and yeah, she was just encouraging me, and she shared a word with our church, and it was just all about dealing with transition. And in that moment, I just felt like, all right, I need to have a conversation with my parents, and I did the following Sunday. And I'm sitting at a dinner table with my parents and my wife, and I said, I feel to change the name of the church. Now, mind you, I took the church in January of 2020, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say. Woof.
And of January of 2020. So I only saw my church for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And still haven't seen them since because of COVID. But it was in 2019, September of 2019, that I shared with my dad and my mom that I feel to change the name. And at first, I started off by saying, I feel to change the name. And at first, they were like, Chris, I don't know, it's too soon. And then they said, well, what's the name? And I said, Saints Church. And the moment I said that, they go, yep, that's it.
Wow.
And it was a complete shift. So again, I have to say that I thank God for my parents, because they've just been our biggest champions and supporters.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, I would encourage anyone that's walking through transition. I know this is going to sound very pastoral and very cliche, but forget all that for a second and hear the seriousness of it. Both parties need to be praying. Both parties need to be praying, because it takes so much sensitivity to the Holy Spirit to figure out what needs to be done. We don't want to do as leaders what we've always done because we've always done it. We want to keep doing what we should be doing, and we want to stop doing what we shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
And in the context of transition, both parties need to pivot.
Yeah, I actually, Chris, in the back, I wrote this 30-day kind of when you step in, here's some ideas for the first week, the second week, the third week, and every one of those start with prayer. Because there's a dance of discernment, isn't there? Like it's
Ooh, I love that.
two steps forward, a step back as you're trying to navigate these complicated issues.
Absolutely. That's absolutely it. It's a dance of discernment. That's brilliant. You should write a book on that.
I tried. Hey, so let's switch gears to talk about the team that you stepped into then, because even though there was obviously going to be honor and respect because you're a Durso and you're a part of the family that, was there, you still have to step in and become Chris Durso, the new lead pastor. What's one or two things that you learned, good or bad, as you tried to go, hey, getting your team in line or on board with you as a leader, not just the fact that you were the son of the former pastor?
Yeah, that's probably the whole shebang right there, right? Because on one side of it, you're dealing with the let me and my dad, in this case, the previous pastor, get on the same page.
Right.
Then it's also this team that you're inheriting, and is also inheriting you. When they first took
they didn't sign up for you.
And I think that that's fair to recognize. Me and my dad are very different leaders, and that's okay. And what everyone on team has to figure out is, am I okay now with this leadership style,
That's right,
this approach? And if they're not, that's really okay. I think as Christians, because we're doing full-time ministry, we take it too personal. But it's personal for the individual. It's not personal for you. It's not necessarily attack on your leadership. It's just them saying, this is what I'm currently dealing with, and this is my current outlook on life, and I want to be part of a church that maybe operates this way. I don't want to do things that way, and that's okay. So, there were people that have been a part of the church since the inception of the church, which means they would have seen me grow up. They would have maybe tutored me as a child. Like there's all those dynamics, and some of them are still here, and they're a great part of the team. And then there are others that decided it was time to move on, and that's never easy. But I think the best thing you could do is wish them well and pray that in their next season they flourish and they find peace. It's never easy, and I don't think at every moment I did the best job. But what I have learned is that same honesty and that same authenticity that I was referring to before, that staff really needs it. Because if they're going to figure out if they could serve you, they have to know who you really are. Don't just give them textbook answers, not just giving them the things that you think they should hear. One of the mistakes I made was I wanted people to feel empowered. So I gave out a book. I won't say which book. It is a great book, but it was a book about stepping out and knowing who you are.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to accomplish in that moment was getting the staff to feel liberated, that if they didn't want to be a part of the team, that was okay. And if they did, let's go for it together.
Right.
What ended up happening is that people on team who were in positions that we needed, now all of us started looking at their position and figuring out, well, I don't want to be in this position, I want to be over there. And it started all these other conversations, and it really backfired on me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get a book to say what I could have said. And I think we give out books. We're leaders. Leaders are readers, right? Let's get people reading. But at the same time, if I'm a leader and I have an expectation, I have to communicate that clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good, man. It's almost like you handed off the vision and the culture change, didn't you? And
right.
And all of a sudden you come back and you go, whoa, that's not what I meant.
Right.
Like, wait a second.
So then that was the book I gave. So that was my fault.
Yeah, I appreciate you being honest about that, because that was one of my questions is like, we're not going to do this perfect. But the heartbeat is going, hey, at the end of the day, I agree with you. And I've always said this, I want you on the right seat on the bus, even if it's not my bus, right? Like we want our leaders to flourish. And if we know they're not going to flourish because what we bring to the table is not what they thrive under, okay, great. And I agree with you. It's personal because we're all people and we care about each other, but it's not personal in the sense of, what Henry Cloud calls necessary endings. It could just be that he's got a new season for you, and let's celebrate that. One of the greatest things I love about new people, Chris, coming in, and even a new leader like you, even though you'd been there, you were new into this role, is that you bring fresh eyes to the perspective. You see things differently. But you'd been there for a while. So how have you leaned on maybe some new staff or some leaders that weren't able to speak up as, under your dad's leadership because they were in different roles or whatever? How have you leaned on some fresh eyes to help you navigate where do we need to go?
So one of the things I did was I reached out to the Table Group, which is Patrick Lencioni's leadership firm, and I asked for their help, and I submitted to what they offered in their consultants, and it's actually been a massive help. And one of the things that we've used is Patrick's book, The Advantage.
Yep.
And we live by that book. I'm not saying it works for everyone. It has really worked for us, and how we lead or facilitate meetings, building culture, which we're definitely not all the way there yet. But as we are facilitating and leading through it, it's given us language and space for everyone to zero in on what they need to be focusing on. Because really that comes down to it, right? Like, you could have all the feelings and emotions you want. You could be happy or you could be unhappy. But when it comes down to the productivity and the work being done, that's where you're going to find out as a leader, did I even want you on the bus? Because there are people that think, I want to be a part of this bus. Because if we're being honest, when it comes to transition, I think the one thing all leaders, especially people in my position, need to understand, no one wants to leave. I mean, unless they just don't want to live, let's say, in the city anymore. People would prefer, most people, to keep doing what they've been doing because they have a rapport. It's a part of their daily rhythm. Why would I want to leave what I'm already used to? So I only say that to say you have to create the space for people to realize what they really want. And that book really helped us.
Yeah. Well, and it's, to me, it's Lencioni's whole career is based on the idea that healthy organizations are better, right? Like, just clear and simple. You can sell the same product, but if you're healthier than the other, then you're going to win. And I think churches are notoriously not super healthy organizations. And in all honesty, we should be the most healthy organization on the planet. And so I love that. I love that that's where you leaned. And, it's interesting, Chris, because I think so many pastors go, well, that's not super spiritual. Well, it's not, right? But I think good leadership could be the most spiritual thing you could do today, is take care of the people that are face to face with you.
I would love to have that conversation with anyone, because I think one of the things that I've even heard my dad say, he's grateful for all the leadership that is now entering into the church, where in his era that wasn't the case. You just said, hey, let's pray about it, or listen to this sermon. But as what we've seen develop within the church, where the church has become a little bit more sophisticated, is understanding how to break down vision and giving clarity of expectation. Where if I'm looking at the Bible, when Jesus commissions us to go out, he commissions us to go out and accomplish these things. But then I also look at the common theme throughout the whole Bible. It's harmony, unity. Well, how do you achieve harmony or unity? Stewardship. Well, what's stewardship? It's properly handling what I've been given. When Jesus says, the greatest commandment of all is to love your Lord God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And then he says the second commandment is the same as the first. Love people with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. I think the first two words are easy to define. I got to love people with all my heart, with all my soul. I think any leader could communicate that and explain that well. But those second two words, it really speaks to leadership, doesn't it? How do I love someone with my mind? How do I love someone with my mind? Not simply my thoughts. It speaks to strategy. It speaks to consideration. It speaks to planning. For everyone listening that has ever been in a relationship and has ever received a good gift or given a good gift, good gifts take strategy. It takes listening. It takes planning. If you want to plan a good party, if you want to plan a good date, if you want to plan a good wedding, all of that takes good strategy. The opposite is true. When you give a gift that wasn't heartfelt or thought through, people notice. If you keep giving your spouse the same flowers that maybe she has explained to you she does not like, she's going to look at you like, do you really love me? Are you really thinking this through? Are you listening to me? And it comes from this idea, no, we love people like God instructed us to do, to love people with all of our mind and then all of our strength. What is strength? All of our effort. Let's make strong decisions and then let's follow through with them strongly. And I think that's a game changer for leaders to understand that all throughout the Bible, there's this expectation of stewardship. This is why the Bible also says, he who wins souls is wise. There's wisdom in understanding the context in which you're living in. You know, to even speak to that idea, we have had several people move from, you know, around the country to join our church. And there were some people that came and then after a while wasn't used to the rhythm of New York and decided that they didn't want this rhythm. Because I'm born and raised in New York, I didn't really think of it as much. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's living here is like living anywhere else. Even though we know the famous sayings, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
But when you're born and raised, you may not realize the cultural differences for someone that lives in, you know, small town USA. So even in that, the staff that I'm building and the team that I'm using, all great people, but do they have the understanding of what it means when I say, hey, we're going to love people with all of our mind and with all of our strength? What does that look like? In our context, if our building only sits a certain number and we have to do now several services on a weekend just because, you know, that takes strength, that takes effort, that takes strategy. And I'm just saying all that to say that's exactly what leadership takes.
Yeah.
And it's unique in every context.
That's really good, Chris. All right. A couple questions that I want to do a quick lightning round and we'll wrap this up. But like, if you're, I know you're willing because you always do this, but like, what was a fear that you had when you stepped in? You know, because we didn't even know COVID was a thing, but just in terms of you leading, what's an honest fear that you had as you stepped in to follow your dad?
Fear, just my fear of failing. Like, that was it for sure. I mean, my dad has been consistent. He's the only pastor this church has known for 36 years. That's rare. So to see the longevity of my parents and the consistency of who they are and how they built the church, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to fail as a leader, and that was my wife's greatest fear. And so if you're talking about finances, if you're talking about, you know, church growth, all of those things, it was that fear because as leaders, what I've learned in life is that too often we could be overconfident in our skill set, but we all know that it takes way more than skill set to build something great, especially a church.
Yeah.
So that was my fear. And then stepping into it, you know, 8 weeks with our church and then COVID hits and it hits really bad in New York. And then all the racial tension and it's happening big time in New York. It was heavy. It was really heavy and it still is. How do I lead our church that I just met in this position through this, you know, and how I lead them through this season, they'll never forget. You know, I was a college student when 9/11 happened, and I'll never forget that day. I know everyone has their stories of where they were. Well, I was in school when I heard it happen. I was on campus at Queensborough College, community college, and then I was in our prayer meeting that night, and I remember watching hundreds of people walk into our building covered in dust. They walked straight from ground zero straight to the church, and I watched my dad and my mom pastor those people through that moment. This feels very similar.
Yeah.
It's different because it's over a long period of time. And I'm just like, God, give me the grace and the wisdom on how to lead my community through this horrific tragedy.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So switching gears, now that you've walked through this, you and I talked briefly about this before we started recording, but what are you most excited about now? Like God's done some stuff. The church is alive and moving. When you look ahead for the church saints, but just the church, the Big C church, what are you excited about?
I'm really excited about this idea of getting back to what really matters. And I think that it takes moments like this for everyone, leaders, uh, congregants, pastors, to go, man, we put such a strong emphasis on these areas, but none of it really matters. Can we just get back in a room and worship together and be loud and proud about the fact that we have Jesus who will give us peace even through moments and seasons like this? Because as I think of ministry that way, if 2020 and 2021 have been difficult for Christians, imagine what it's been like for non-Christians. Right? Imagine what it's like trying to get through that without knowing there's a hope in Jesus. Man, that's difficult. So when I get excited about evangelism. I get excited about reaching the lost. I get excited about offering hope to people that may be completely depleted of hope.
I love that, Chris. All right, are you good for a couple quick lightning questions here?
Let's go.
All right. Best marriage advice you've ever been given?
Happy wife, happy life. Complete transparency, being completely honest with one another is the best advice. My wife is a sharp woman. She's a smart cookie. She's no joke. And I've just learned that she's mostly right, and to listen to that gut when it comes to assessing problems or situations. Truth be told, honoring that gut feeling that each one of us have, that's pretty strong advice I'd give.
That's great. Favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time? Oh, I feel like because of the nature of the podcast, I'm gonna just go with Passion of the Christ. Chris, come on. No, I mean, I love so many different movies. I love a good amount of mafia movies. I'm Italian. I'm born and raised in New York. Goodfellas, but
I just watched it on the plane the other day. So good.
Version. I'm gonna say the TNT version, so no one judges me. You know what I
mean? There you go. All right. Best leadership idea that's helped you in your career?
Best leadership idea.
I mean, there's a lot there, but like, just what's one thing that you hang your hat on?
Ooh. Communicate change in groups. It creates accountability. So as opposed to going individual, so I think what happens originally is you cast vision and you do it broad, and then you meet with people individually to make sure they understand it. But I would say meet with your team as a whole and make sure that they understand it, and keep meeting with them so that you could filter out all the questions from each aspect.
That's really good. I like that. I haven't heard that, and I've heard a lot of them. So that was really strong. The last one, if you could, this one's going to kill you. You're going to be mad at me for asking this question. If you could only listen to one band's entire music catalog for the rest of 2021, who would it be? That's all you can listen to.
Hillsong United. Shout out to Joe.
Yeah, it's funny. I was with a friend. We kind of did this question. We were fishing in Montana, just riding a boat, and he said, "What?" He asked that question. I said, "I'm not trying to play the Jesus card, but there are so many songs in the Hillsong United category that I would have so much to choose from."
And I'm also the guy. Listen, I love music. I love music. I love worship music.
Me too, man.
Right away, going through my mind, like Hillsong United, Maverick City, and either one, but for sure, Hillsong United is my favorite.
Love it. Well, hey, Chris, as a friend, but also someone who just respects what you're doing and how you've done it, I just want to say, way to go. I know you've been navigating some crazy amount of stuff, and you're doing it with honor and care for the people you love and for the people who loved you, your mom and dad. And so as someone who stepped in to lead something you didn't start, I just want to applaud you and celebrate you and know that you get a standing ovation from all the way down here in the big city of Atlanta.
Thank you, bro. I so appreciate you. And thank you for this podcast. Thank you for putting it on and helping, encouraging leaders like me, because we really need it. We appreciate your voice.
Thank you so much, Pastor Chris Durso, and thanks for being a great friend and just a great leader. If you want to follow Chris, you can go to @Chris Durso, Durso, and check out Saints Church, and just, amazing stuff that they're doing. I love the way he leads. I love his passion for the local church, and I'm just grateful for the way he's cared for me. He's been life-giving to me, and he's just life-giving to so many other people. So, again, if you enjoy this podcast, if this is helping you in your leadership journey, I'd appreciate it if you went on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and rate it and share it with your friends. Just kind of keep plugging away at this and growing our audience and trying to serve and create more life-giving leaders all the way around this crazy world of ours. So thanks for listening. I pray that you lead well this week and you give life to those around you. So have a great week. We'll see you in a few weeks.